The Quarry, Supermassive's latest game on the market, released this year in 2022. I will say up front that firstly, I've only done one single playthrough, and I intend to do more, but those will be co-op and or live streamed. I haven't done them yet, but I thought I'd give my initial thoughts anyway, so anything I say here might not be set in stone, because I still wanted to give an initial review after I first played it. That also being said, I would also like to state up front that of all the Supermassive games so far, which the only ones that are mainstream are this one, Until Dawn, and then the Dark Pictures anthology, that being Man of Medan / Medan, Little Hope, and House of Ashes. And coming soon, The Devil in Me. Out of all of those games, honestly, this one is my favorite. Until Dawn had its own perks, but quite frankly, it was a bit cheesy. And in fact, I even gave some predictions towards the beginning of the Quarry based solely upon my experience with Until Dawn. So, to start out with, in the beginning, meaning the beginning of the game, I bitched a lot. And I bitched a lot mostly because of the characters and because of the retroactive design of a lot of the game mechanics. Like the fact that instead of just having a guy stand there, like casually with buttons left and right saying whichever your dialogue choice is going to be, they had it like slow-mo and really dramatic and whatnot in order to convey the same thing. I didn't like that at first, but to be honest, I basically grew into it, the whole retro style thing. And as far as the characters acting like fucking idiots, it's really weird because most of the characters, pretty much all of them, start out like fucking idiots, like I just said. But with like one exception being the guy who's in Santa Clarita Diet, Max, whatever his name is, with the exception of him, most of them mellow out and become semi-intelligent, which I think is really weird. And even the worst ones, like, well, who I dubbed to be the slutty cunt, that being Emma, even the ones like her, she mellows out too and becomes more likable. Now, granted, still not the best, but more likable. So with that being said, I disliked the game at first strongly, but the longer it went, the more I liked it. And so it was cliche, the whole thing, because it's a campfire thing. It's basically Friday the 13th. I even compare it to Friday the 13th during the playthrough. It's basically Friday the 13th, where you have counselors who are in their camp, in their campgrounds, and shit gets fucked. Now, granted, there's a twist because the hunters are not hunting for the counselors; they're hunting for the creatures, which brings me to a dynamic that I can't comment on yet. But I wonder what happens if you make yourself known to the hunters. I can't imagine they fuck with you. I imagine they just ignore you or something. I mean, right? I'm referring to parts like if you're like in a room and then they sit there and the big guy's looking for you. If you don't stay silent, what happens? Because I truly don't know. But I intend to find out in a future playthrough. But that's neither here nor there. The main thing right now, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the fact that it breaks those major cliches. Actually, no. So leading on to what I just said, the first thing I'm going to talk about is, I suppose, the characters themselves. So I like pretty much all of them. A few of them are fucking idiots. They're all fucking idiots in the beginning, but I'm not going to... I'm going to disregard chapter 1 of the prologue for the character shit because I don't like it. They're all just fucking morons. But so some of them are still fucking idiots. Like Jacob isn't the sharpest knife in the crayon box. Max is not the sharpest knife in the crayon box. Neither of them are that smart. But that being said, the rest of them, whatever her name was, the blonde from the prologue, she really mellows out and becomes actually semi-intelligent, and she gets her groove on, meaning her murder boner, right? For Travis Hackett, the police officer. And then you got other guys, Nick. Well, okay, so here's the problem with actually doing some of this shit, and this is completely understandable, is that you only really, for the most part, get their relationships with each other. That's what their characters are for the most part. Like, the only thing you really know about Jacob is that he's kind of a dick / douche, and that he wants to be with Emma because he's been fucking her for the past 2 months. And she somehow is bewildered by that. If you're fucking someone for 2 months, they're gonna want to be with you. Sorry, Emma, that's just kind of the way it is. I can't comprehend how that's such a fucking issue with you, but whatever. But for the most part, that's how they are, though. The only people that you really get any sort of thing out whatsoever outside of the relationship with each other is the Hackett family, but even then only because the vampire slash werewolf shit, and Ryan and Dylan. Because with Dylan, you get some stuff on him, like the fact that he's actually smart but pretends to be dumb, I guess, to be likable or some shit, which I can get with, and here's why. I don't approve of this kind of behavior, but I do understand it, where you fake your way through bullshit in order to fit in more, which is kind of what he did, which I get. I have done that. I haven't done that myself since I was a child, because I haven't given a fuck since I was a child, but I do get it, and I have done it in the past. And the other one being Ryan. Because with Ryan, you get the sense that he likes to follow the rules, he likes to give a fuck, he likes Chris Hackett, which is partly why he likes to give a fuck. And just in general, he's a good-hearted guy. Sorry for that cut. Look, I changed my shirt. These characters, though, you don't really have too much to go on with any of them. So it's difficult for me to grade, well, any of them. Because there's not much to go by, and what there is to go by is 50% you. The only thing you really have to go by is that Jacob is not smart. The Nick guy is soft. Prudent, perhaps, is maybe the correct word. But only on the outside. On the inside, as Ryan mentioned, he's a beast. And that can be clearly shown, because when I apologize if this feels all over the place, but when Abby is there with him after he's infected in that like weird building place where they first meet Laura, he starts calling her, what's it, just a cop-out answer, you're such a bitch, why don't you like me, all that kind of bullshit. With that though, I don't think that was the vampire slash werewolf talking. I think that was just his attitude changing as a result of the transformation. So I think that was just his true feelings, uninhibited by his normal inhibitions. And so, but that's what you get from him. With Abby, she's kind of the same way, where she's more so reserved than anything else. And then you got other things. You got, what's his face, Dylan, who pretends to be a dipshit, but is apparently actually smart. Although, that's only ever in dialogue, because quite frankly, the game never shows him to be smart. So, Ryan, who I hate the way he sounds and talks in general, and the way that he's basically a teacher's pet, but he does do the right thing even when other people don't want to. And I have a feeling that even in the face of peer pressure, they do give you the choice to, always stick with the rules and what's supposed to be happening. So that's a plus for his side. And I think the only one left, really, I may have been forgetting one or two, but I think the main one left then is, I'm not going to count Max and Laura because I just consider them to be both morons. And then as far as the cop and the Hacketts go, they have their issues. So the last one is a slutty cunt. Where, well, honestly, with the one exception of the fact that she did what she did, as in kiss Nick, to get him and Abby together, which was a cunt move on her part because she did so at Jacob's expense, even though she didn't give a fuck. What would have made their relationship far better, her and Jacob, is if she had talked to him about this shit beforehand instead of pulling that bullshit right then and there. Now, would Jacob have given a fuck? Maybe not. But it would have at least lessened the blow. I think, anyway. So that being said, though, with the characters themselves, how do they react to the shit around them? Well, in interesting ways. In all honesty, the Asian, I forget her name, but the Asian was like the smartest among them. And I only imagine what she could have done if I didn't hinder her abilities, because quite frankly, every time she fucked up was on me. When she saw that one guy in the lodge, she didn't do shit because of me. I wonder how it would have gone had she done shit. When they were hiding and she was about to go in that freezer, she died because of me. and Dylan too as a result. So they both died because of my fuck up. So unfortunately, I can't really shit on her because she did a lot of wrong shit, but she only did wrong shit because I did the wrong shit for her. All her fuck ups were my fuck ups. As far as Jacob goes, fucking moron. Through and through. As far as slutty cunt goes, she's a slutty cunt, but she does handle her own well when she's in the face of peril. As when she was up against that vampire/werewolf that she had to go up against. Laura, she's a fucking idiot, but she's resourceful. Actually, I would also like to make one retraction towards the prologue concerning those two. I made a nitpick/complained about the fact that that Laura was the one answering all the questions, and I called bullshit on it because I thought that Max had been the one answering the questions. And I will admit now that was premature, because one thing that becomes clear is that Laura is the assertive one, not Max. Max, she wears the pants in their relationship, not Max. So, in hindsight, it makes perfect sense for it to go the way it did with Officer Travis Hackett. So, just wanted to point that out there. I retroactively retract that complaint because that's the case. And I also retroactively retract the complaint when she went out of the woods alone for no reason. There was a reason she was looking for the bitch in the woods. I missed that bit of dialogue. That's once again my fault. So she's not a complete moron, but she does say a lot of stupid shit nonetheless. But she can handle her own. Now Max, on the other hand, you never really see Max handle his own, but he's a fucking idiot. I maintain that 100%. As far as Dylan and Ryan goes, Dylan is supposed to be book smart, but good fuck. He is not smart in other ways. SOS, there's bears everywhere, there's a fucking swarm. Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, from now on in these reviews, I'm gonna give a favorite moment in the game. My favorite moment in this game is that dumbass SOS radio call. The fucking swarm of bears. I fucking love that shit. It's so funny. Although he probably should have bled out when his arm first got cut off, but that's okay. But now Ryan and Dylan. Well, okay, the funny thing is that Ryan, with like one other person, does well. At least with Dylan. Dylan with the group acts like a dipshit, but he does act smarter when he's with like one other person. He exhibits this nature when he's with Ryan. He exhibits this nature when he's with the Asian. But anyway, I think it's about done with the character shit. So now allow me to I'll get to another main point, which is the atmosphere. The atmosphere meaning visual, sound design, music, all that shit. The sound design is great. The visuals are impeccable. The sound design is excellent. So honestly, as far as the atmosphere goes, okay, this is not on par with something like Layers of Fear, and it's sure as fuck not on par with something like The Medium, or Amnesia: The Dark Descent, or Outlast 2. Those are some of the great, especially Amnesia: Dark Descent and The Medium. The Medium, but like, it's nowhere near the level of those games. Those games are fucking impeccable to the 4th degree. No, fuck that, to the 10th degree. Here's the thing though. For what it is, for what it seeks to accomplish, it does itself well. And a game doesn't have to have the best atmosphere in the world objectively, so long as it suits its purpose sufficiently, which this game does. So is it the best atmosphere I've ever seen in my life? No, but does it absolutely suffice for what it's supposed to do? Yes. So I know that's not saying much, I'm not elaborating much on it, but honestly, this game doesn't have too many bells and whistles. It only vibrates when needed to. Actually, it only does a minimal vibration, doesn't really care much for it. The sound design does well, but to be quite frank, I'm one of the few people who actually praises atmosphere. Like straight up. Well, I think anyway. Like most people, if the atmosphere is perfect, most people probably won't say shit about it, but then if it's bullshit, they'll say shit about that. Like they'll criticize it, but they won't compliment it. I will compliment it, but only to the point that it suffices for everything it plans to do. The only part of its atmosphere that it goes above and beyond on is the visuals. The facial animations are fucking impeccable. The graphics themselves are fucking impeccable. And I can only imagine what they'll do next. So the atmosphere is kind of a short thing, but that's all I got, in all honesty. It doesn't have any bells and whistles. It doesn't have any 3D audio that I noticed. It's just there. It does what it needs to. It does everything well, but nothing above and beyond. So there you go. Kind of like A Plague Tale: Innocence. So now let's get to one more thing, which is the overall narrative. I'm going over the characters, now the narrative. This shit is Friday the 13th. You got counselors who are being, but with a twist. You got counselors who are being stopped by creatures. The Hacketts are the creatures. The Hacketts are protecting people and trying to round up the creatures, and that's all there is to it. That's the main point of it. It's Friday the 13th with a twist. It's your average slasher movie. That's what this is. And honestly, I don't really have much more to go on than that. That's pretty much it. I just gotta be honest. I mean, this narrative, okay, the main dynamic for me is the character relationships in this narrative. The actual narrative doesn't have much to go on. Now, this will probably, granted, this will be expanded upon during doing future playthroughs, because I don't know all the narrative. Because you got the Hag of Hackett's Quarry, which I'm pretty sure if you aim to kill all the Hacketts and not kill the one dude, that you will get more information on that. So you know what? How about this? For the main narrative section of this video, consider it incomplete, because I don't have all the loose ends yet. You know, I will make another review for this game, if for nothing else than for the narrative, expanding on that section of it. Because this is all I got, because that's all there really is to it from one playthrough. So, moving on to the next section from here. And what is the next section from here? Well, it's the big kahunas of the whole thing, the motherfucking gameplay. So this gameplay, it's really dumb at first, but you get used to it. Meaning the retro looking shit, okay? The way that, you know, somebody will just be reaching for a package, next thing you know, it'll have that meter come down and all that. That shit is weird as fuck, and I didn't like it at first. And truth be told, I still don't like it. But it suffices for what's supposed to do. But in all honesty, I'd rather not see it again. I like games where it's just a normal atmosphere and you just have a few options to click what you want to do on the side of the head and that's it. It's just real weird the way this game does its option shit. And the worst offender, and truth be told, I'm going to be talking about QTs and whatnot for the most part because that's what most of this game is. The worst offender is the goddamn QTEs. They go in slow-mo and they use the goddamn joystick. People criticize QTEs and certain things like boss fights, and I agree with that to an extent. But the way this game implements them is just egregious, in all honesty. Why the fuck would I ever not want to do a QTE when they're as easy as this goddamn shit? The only variation is every once in a while the mash X button. That's it. That's fucking easy. All you gotta do is mash the fucking X button. These QTEs have no challenge whatsoever. And I think as far as gameplay goes, they're probably the worst part of the game, in all honesty. Another point of this, of the gameplay, is just the walking around talking to people, which is standard. I have nothing to say about that. It's just your average shit. So I suppose the last part of the gameplay for this, as far as I can see at least, will be the shooting. Now, the shooting is actually done well enough. In fact, this is the one I'll praise it for the most. Having the flashlight be your aimer, right? Fine with it. I really am. I'm fine with having the flashlight be your aimer. And whenever there's a situation where it's really just slow, right? Like, let's say if you're just staring down your target and neither one of them moving at each other, it gives you plenty of time to shoot. So you can easily aim your shit, shoot the shot, and get the motherfucker. But then, if it's quick and fast-paced, like when that one motherfucker was chasing after Abby, it's fast, it's quick-paced, and you don't have much time to aim. And in fact, I fucking missed, and she fucking died. Just to point that out. So, I think the shooting mechanic is probably the best part of the game. Even though it's simple as hell, it's straight up point-click. But I'll tell you what, it suffices for what it needs to do. I place it as the best part of this game, gameplay-wise. Now, going back to the narrative real quick, one thing I will say is that I praise it for making sense the whole way through, even just from the part that I know. It doesn't do like a fucking Quantic Dream game where it pulls some bullshit plot twist halfway through for no fucking reason. It does everything it does well. It doesn't leave any stone untouched. Now, there are some things I didn't get to, meaning gameplay-wise, meaning in the game, because I've only done one playthrough, but I do intend to see how it evolves from there. But everything makes sense, and now I was able to predict certain things, but not everything, and I still don't know everything without a second playthrough. And here's the thing about me personally. I don't mind if things are predictable as long as it makes sense. But that's me personally. Because I like things that make sense and be logical. Everything in this game makes sense. At no point for any twist did this game have to bullshit its way through some bullshit. Everything made sense. It was all well done. I praise it for that. Praise be to thee for this. I'll give it that. So now, before I leave off on this review, I've actually taken a few notes. Some of these may be answered, some maybe not, but we'll see how this goes. So here we go. This is my first time ever doing this for a game review. Note number 1. These are just thoughts I had. Asian never brings up disabled vehicle. As in, it's a complaint. For the fact, because I write some things down. For the fact that she knows damn well that Jacob asked her about taking out the thingy for the vehicle. She warned him against it, he did it anyway. And then when, what's-his-face, Chris Hackett, is trying to start the vehicle, she doesn't say shit about it. I will accept this only if it's explained later on at some point in the playthrough that she was aware of what Jacob was trying to do and intentionally didn't say shit about shit. But in that case, unless she was trying to keep everybody from hating Jacob for keeping them there in the first place, she should have said shit about it later on. That's note number 1. Here's another one. So, I'm not going to read these verbatim anymore. Actually, I will. Teddy bear amounts to nothing. What do I mean by that? There's a point in the game when Abby picks up a teddy bear to give to somebody, and it amounts to nothing. Maybe I missed something there, or maybe it plays a part if you make different decisions, but as it stands now for me, it does nothing. So that was just a small criticism from me. It does nothing. Fire during scenic route amounts to nothing. Which is right around the same area. Abby and What's-Her-Face are riding in a cart, and then from that cart, they see the fire. They choose to do nothing about it. And the game never mentions it again. So what the fuck? Unless it comes up again in a second, like why was it even there? Unless it comes in a second playthrough, it's pointless and stupid. Hackett didn't transform during camp time. So what do I mean by that in my notes? Well, here's what I mean by that. Full Moon comes out once a month, of course. The camp lasts for 2 months. So I get that the whole thing is that the camp starts right after a full moon and ends right before a full moon. But this camp is 2 fucking months, which means there's a full moon that takes place in the middle of the camp. So unless Chris Hackett left the camp for one night, which to my knowledge they never say he did, unless it's supposed to be implied that he did, he should have transformed in the middle of the camp. So I will chalk it up that it's supposed to be implied that he left in the middle of the camp, because otherwise there's some problems there. Just saying. Here's another one. Evidence doesn't amount to shit. What do we mean by that? The game places a big emphasis on evidence. It gives you one of those bullshit, unskippable video tutorials and everything, and they even mention it during one of the cutscenes. And yet by the end of the game, it doesn't amount to shit. Now, the only point where you might be able to come up with where it matters is at the end, during the credits, during that fucking podcast. I didn't listen to that whole podcast because, quite frankly, I listened to that podcast for 10 fucking minutes before giving up on it because I wanted to see if anything would happen, and it didn't. It was just them talking about bullshit. I don't give a fuck. I listened to it for 10 minutes. It didn't amount to shit. So the evidence doesn't amount to shit, so what's the point of it? Unless it amounts to shit if you choose different things to go on. Chris's hatch makes sense from a narrative perspective, but not from a gameplay perspective. But here's the thing, though, and that's actually another note. Ladder rung bends beneath that hatch. My point with the ladder rung bends is that it bends when he goes up it, and then nothing ever happens from there. My assumption is that, now granted, I'm fine with the hatch being there either way because they're for narrative purposes, even if not for gameplay purposes. But my guess is that the basement hatch/shit and or ladder matter if you have different outcomes. Here's one guess I already have for it, is with Abby. Abby runs towards that place when the thing is chasing after her. If she survives, if you shoot the motherfucker off her, my guess is that that ladder comes into play, she tries to climb up it, but then the fucking rung breaks so she falls down or some shit, and then you have to get your way out of it. That's my guess. So my guess, I didn't get to it, and hopefully in the future playthrough I will. Never mind, that's a note that I took, but it doesn't matter. I'll just read it off. Nick never gets the poppers as a reward. It fucking happened off screen. Not found body in lake. Here's a good one. This is the penultimate one, by the way. I pointed this out during gameplay, but I'll just mention it again here. During Emma and Jacob's section, when he's sitting on the pier, it's shown that there's a body under the lake. That's a fucking lake for 2 fucking months. Swimming pool, I understand there's a swimming pool there, but swimming pool or no swimming pool, kids would have been in that motherfucking lake. Even if they did it surreptitiously, they would have been in that lake swimming, and ergo diving underwater. You mean to tell me that no kid ever dove underwater and found that corpse under the water? It's just some bullshit I have to call, but that's what that is. And here's the last note I have. Why did the lights go off? By that I mean the part with Ryan and Dylan when they're talking about, when they're about to call the police and the phone goes out. Why did the phone go out and why did the lights go out? The vampire/werewolves didn't do it. They're not smart enough for that. They act on instinct. The counselors themselves didn't do it. That would be counterproductive. And why in fuck would the hunters do it? The hunters don't give a fuck about shit aside from the vampires. The only explanation I can give... Well, okay. For the phone there is. For the light, I have no explanation for the light. It doesn't make any sense. Which kind of actually shits on the thing I just said about everything making sense. So I guess as of right now, the lights going off doesn't make any sense. I will say that. So that shits on one thing I already said. But the phone I can give a bypass to. And here's why I can give a bypass to the phone. Because you could argue that the hunters themselves cut off the phone line because they think the counselors might call the police, which they were about to, but then they obviously don't want the police to come because then they'll find out about the creatures and all that and shit will get real. So that's my explanation for the phone. So that being said, that's all my other shit out of the way. I will do another review after more playthroughs, but for now this is it. So what I'll do now is I'll give this game a final grade, which will give a solid B, which means I liked it. But yeah, that's about it. So I'll give myself some time right here if I want to add anything right now. Alright, this is going to take longer than this 30 seconds, but there are a few things that I want to add to the review. Hello, new elevation for the camera. They're all on my phone. So the first thing is, Hackett pool things curing wounds. So they'll deal with that. And what I mean by that is basically the fact that when they fall into the pool, meaning Laura and Ryan, it heals Laura. But I thought that water was supposed to hurt the vampires, or does it cure them? I'm curious on how the water in the pool concept works. Maybe that's explained in the game, I just missed it. Maybe not. Either way, that's the deal with it. The next thing is, why didn't the Hacketts, disarm Laura as soon as they got her back? Very interesting thing. They capture them and bring them to the matriarch, but she still has a shotgun, which then gets the matriarch's head blown off. So that is a very curious problem. Why didn't they just disarm her as soon as they caught her? Why do they have to kill... Okay, who do they have to kill to cure the curse? He who bit you, Chris, or the original shit? The line is never made clear. Now this one I actually do already have my own canon for. It's that whoever bit you, if they're killed, it will cure you. But at the same time, whoever bit them, like if the person who bit the person who bit you was to get killed, then it would cure both you and the person who bit you. So I think that's already been cleared by that. But I thought that I'd mention it since it's in my notes. Here's another one, and here's actually really the last one. What's the point of trying to get Nick and Abby together if this is the last night? Just so they can fuck each other once? possibly. And so yeah, that was basically it. It's the same sort of thing as like at least Emma and Jacob still makes more sense because they were fucking throughout the entire 2 months of the summer camp thing. But when it comes to Abby and Nick, they had a thing for each other, yeah. But that's true. It's the very last day of camp. Why are they? Why are people like Emma trying to hook them up right now, trying to get them to fuck? It's the last day. At this point, it just doesn't really seem to serve much of a purpose. Anyway, that's it though. So back to the rest of the review now. Did I add anything? Maybe, maybe not. Either way, this is it. This has been the Quarry, the first playthrough. I'll do another review when I could do more. But that's it for now. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.